Come to ONDC next, and which you said came somewhere down the line, right? So to explore that a little more as to how it came about and all that. But before that, if you could explain to our listeners what exactly is ONDC and how is it really helping for startups, right? And you can talk in your own context, obviously, from what you implement and what you know. Let's again look at two ways in which it can be useful, right? One is in building a product. So what would that look like? And second is in terms of partnerships and collaborations, what is the benefit of being on this network and how does it enable everyone to sort of grow together? So let's start with building a product on ONDC.
Okay, so before I get into that, ONDC is Open Network for Digital Commerce, and they are trying to democratize e-commerce. So the way they're doing this is by creating a protocol which can be followed by everyone on the network. So the best example I could give for this is UPI. So UPI is a protocol, it's a set of rules, a set of ways in which people exchange information with each other. And by everyone following the same protocol, you're able to transact between different applications, between different banks, between a seller and a person who's sending money and a person who's receiving money, all on the network. So today, if I want to launch an app which has UPI, I don't need to go and connect specifically with each and every bank which is on UPI. I don't need to connect with each and every other app which is on UPI. All I need to do is follow the UPI protocol, and I am immediately connected to every other bank and every other user and every other app which is on the UPI network. So what this has done is that right now, if I'm on PhonePe, I'm not locked onto PhonePe. In the earlier days of wallets, I have a PhonePe wallet. It's very tough for me to send money to a Paytm wallet, right? Or you feel that vendor lock-in. And what UPI has done is you have a UPI ID. You don't like PhonePe today, you can use something else tomorrow. So as a customer, it's given you that choice. So this is the best analogy that I can draw for ONDC. So for e-commerce, the way this would translate is if I'm a company that's coming on board or building a product, right? That was the first part of your question. Uh, a product company no longer has to focus on every single thing that needs to happen for them to start selling, right? So if my strength, so I'll take the example of Gogapi. We were a street food marketplace to begin with, right? So what were our strengths? So we had two places where we could set ourselves apart. One was that we could have had really good operational capacity, and we could have been really good at making sure that we onboarded vendors and trained them on accepting orders and ensure that they processed orders properly. So we could go and build our seller networks and make sure that that is on point, that is to the industry standard. Okay. On the other side,
Like just to interrupt, it's sort of what Swiggy and Zomato do with how their management of vendors works.
yes,
Training them in that way.
yeah, they do that, right? But then in the traditional marketplace, along with that, we'd also have to go acquire customers, ensure that the customer's experience is smooth through and through, ensure that I give them a very good, I give them what they want. So all of a sudden, for a marketplace to work, and this is how it's been throughout, right? So they have to go ahead, a marketplace company has to acquire sellers, has to acquire customers, has to interact with logistics partners, has to do the whole thing. That becomes really tough for a company. For a company like Gogapi, we had two options. We could either say that we are great at the customer experience or we are great at the vendor experience. And through ONDC, we just have to focus on one. So if we had taken the path of making sure that we went to the seller side, where we said that we're good at onboarding street food vendors and digitizing them, that's all we have to focus on. We have to focus on building our operations. We have to focus on making sure that we build a good network of food vendors. Beyond that, customer acquisition is not my headache. I can plug onto the ONDC network, and there are big players like your Paytms, PhonePays, Google Pays. If they join the ONDC network, all of a sudden, millions of users have access to my sellers, right? So that way, for a company which is starting off, you only have to focus on your strengths. There are others who are focusing on theirs, right? So you could also be, when we were joining, there are lots of companies who are going ahead and onboarding food vendors.
Mhm.
We realized that onboarding food vendors, and especially street food vendors in this unorganized market, it is something that we hadn't cracked so far.
Mm.
Okay, so we had about 20-25 vendors with which we were operating. It was a good response from them, but we didn't have the infrastructure to scale that. What we had achieved is to ensure that even though we were delivering from street food vendors, the 10,000 odd customers who were interacting with us had the same experience that they had on a Swiggy or a Zomato. So
Mm.
what we had cracked is, how do we give the customer a good experience in an unorganized market, in a tough market like food?
Mm.
So that's where we realize there are companies who are onboarding these vendors. Eventually, they'll onboard street food vendors.
Mm.
What we need to do is provide a stellar buyer experience on the ONDC network,
Mm.
right? And that is where we saw that, okay, that was a pivot for us. Now that we have this opportunity, where do we go forward? And we decided to go ahead with the buyer side.
Mm.
Yeah. On hindsight, seller side would have been a good option to explore as well.
Mm.
But I would say that, that's how ONDC is. So for a product, it's no longer focus on either both buyer and seller and delivery, but you just plug into the network, focus on what you're good at. You have everyone else doing the rest of it, right?
Mm.
So that's how it is for a product. What was the second part of your question?
With respect to partnerships and collaborations.
Partnerships and collaborations is a big part of ONDC. The thing is, it's still such an early community
Mm.
that everyone knows everyone here, and everyone is working together to make it a success. And it's like a network effect. So for it to truly be successful, you need your competition to succeed,
Mm.
right? So everyone is working together, everyone is defining the path ahead for it. So the minute you join ONDC, you start collaborating with everyone on the network. So it's really important. If you do want to join ONDC, the best thing to do would be to ensure that you reach out and get into that inner circle as soon as you can,
Mm.
and then they just take you forward from there.
Mm.
So there's a lot of forces driving it. So you need to collaborate with everyone. And there are lots of companies out there who are providing services that enable other companies to come on board ONDC. So collaborating with them would greatly reduce your go-to-market efforts and all of that. So collaboration is key here.
Mm.